The person who hurt you is about to watch God honor you publicly. God says, I saw what they did in silence. I counted every tear they dismissed. I am not preparing revenge, I am preparing revelation. The air feels heavy tonight, the kind of quiet that sits before history changes its tone. Somewhere beyond your understanding, doors are moving on their hinges. Heaven has been waiting for this moment, the one where hidden pain meets divine exposure. For months, maybe years, you've carried the weight of misunderstanding, of betrayal dressed as kindness, of people smiling in your face while poisoning your name in rooms you never entered. You prayed, God, if you see, why don't you speak? And heaven whispered back, I am speaking, just not in the language of haste. Archangel Michael stands near you now, not with a sword raised for battle but with a scroll in his hand, a record written in light. This is the season, he says, where truth steps into daylight without needing to shout. The scroll unfolds, and what was hidden begins to glow. Every injustice, every false word, every manipulation that tried to break your spirit is now being redefined as evidence of endurance. You are about to be remembered right. You feel it first as stillness, that moment when nothing looks different but everything feels lighter. Heaven's courtroom has already convened. The verdict has been read. You don't need to fight for your name anymore, God Himself has decided to honor it. Every closed door that mocked you will now open of its own accord. Those who laughed will soon listen. Those who doubted will soon defend you without understanding why. God says, do not look back for apologies. Look forward for assignments. The ones who wounded you were tools, the ones I send next will be treasures. Archangel Michael's armor reflects a light that wasn't there before, golden, deliberate, impossible to counterfeit. This glow, he explains, is the proof of being chosen after being crushed. Heaven does not waste humiliation, it converts it into authority. You realize that the very rooms that excluded you are now being rearranged for your arrival. Somewhere, a conversation is happening about your name, and this time it carries favor instead of falsehood. The night shifts. You hear distant music, not celebration yet, but rehearsal. They will see it, Michael says, his voice like calm thunder. Not because you demanded recognition, but because your endurance made you undeniable. You stand in the same place where you once wept and understand, vindication doesn't shout, it shines. The same people who questioned your worth will soon quote your wisdom. The ones who walked away will learn what it costs to lose a heart protected by God. God says, I am not exposing them to shame you. I am exalting you to remind them who I am. The ground beneath your feet hums, not from vengeance, but from victory arriving gently. You feel peace rise where pain used to live. You realize the most powerful retribution is restoration. Heaven never humbles your enemies by destroying them, it humbles them by prospering you in public. Michael steps closer, his hand on your shoulder, eyes blazing with the kind of strength that never requires threat. Watch closely, he says. By the time they realize you're blessed, it will already be too late to undo it. You exhale. The night breathes back. Somewhere far above, unseen gates swing open. And in that sacred sound, you hear the quiet beginning of your unveiling. God says, your season of being overlooked is over. The same mouths that gossiped will now gasp. God says, what I lift, no hand can lower. What I announce, no voice can overrule. The morning after that silent verdict feels oddly ordinary, sunlight through curtains, the same creak in the floor, coffee warming the same cup, but inside you, something irreversible has turned. The heaviness that used to anchor your chest now feels like open space. You're not waiting for proof anymore, you are the proof. Archangel Michael walks beside you in the quiet of dawn streets. His presence doesn't command attention, it changes the atmosphere. Strangers smile without knowing why, and even traffic seems to move with more courtesy. Recognition, he says, has already begun. They won't understand at first, they'll just feel the shift. That's how heaven introduces honor, softly, so humility can keep up. You reach the corner cafe that once served as your hiding place when you felt too small to face the world. Today the owner calls your name with brightness, offers the best seat by the window, refuses your payment. Something about you, she says, just blesses the room. You laugh, a real laugh this time. Michael nods. Every wound you survived became light in your aura. This is what recompense looks like in human language. God says, I will not repay you in the currency of bitterness. I will repay you in visibility. Later, at work, or wherever your daily obedience leads, you notice conversations pausing when you speak. The ideas that were ignored months ago are now requested. People repeat your phrases as if they were their own discoveries. You don't correct them, you simply smile. Recognition was never about credit, it was about confirmation. News travels in quiet ways, a project promoted, an invitation extended, a door reopened that once slammed shut. Behind each event, invisible handwriting glows, approved by grace. Those who once rolled their eyes now study your steps, trying to learn how peace walks. That evening, you take the long route home, the same one that passes the church where you once sat in the last pew hoping no one would see you cry. The doors stand open. Candles line the aisle, their flames steady as breath. You kneel again, not in desperation this time, but in awe. So this is what honor feels like, you whisper. Weightless. Michael's voice fills the sanctuary without echo. You see now why heaven waited? If the applause had come earlier, it would have ruined the music. You had to learn rhythm before reward. He points toward the altar where sunlight filters through stained glass, scattering colors over the floor. They thought they dimmed you, he continues. All they did was polish the glass through which you now shine. God says, I do not expose to humiliate. I unveil to educate. Those who misread you will rewrite their stories around your endurance. The door creaks. Someone enters, the very person who once dismissed you publicly, whose words still echo in memory. Their eyes find yours, uncertain, searching. You expect the old pain to rise, but it doesn't. Only peace answers. They begin to speak, an apology tangled in hesitation, but you lift a hand gently. It's already forgiven, you say. And in that moment, the entire atmosphere shifts again. Vindication has turned into victory because mercy has joined it. Michael smiles, a flash of sunrise caught in armor. That, he says, is what honor truly means, not being seen above them, but standing free beside them. You leave the church lighter than air. Outside, twilight paints everything gold. The street that once felt like exile now feels like homecoming. You realize that divine honor isn't ceremony, it's clarity. People finally see what God always saw. God says, "This is not revenge, this is restoration rehearsing eternity." The public table. God says, "When I restore a name, I do not shout from heaven, I set a table on earth where every heart can witness reconciliation." The morning air smells of cinnamon and possibility. You wake with the strange awareness that today is wider than yesterday, as if the walls themselves are breathing with you. The ache that used to greet you like a shadow now lingers only as memory, soft-edged, like the last line of a song. You sense movement around your life again, conversations happening in rooms you once feared, invitations you never asked for, faces turning toward you with warmth instead of wary curiosity. Archangel Michael walks beside you down the street that leads to the community square. His armor is quiet light now, more reflection than metal, and he carries no sword, only a staff carved with the word peace. Honor doesn't isolate, he says. It gathers. Every time heaven lifts a person, the purpose is to feed more souls. At the square, long tables stretch beneath strings of small golden lights. Someone has planned a gathering, a neighborhood feast to celebrate the rebuilding after last year's storms. You pause, remembering the same space littered with debris and silence. Now children chase the scent of roasted corn, musicians test their guitars, and laughter rises where grief once lived. The transformation steals your breath. A volunteer spots you. "Could you help arrange the bread baskets?" she asks. You nod, smile, roll up your sleeves. The simple work steadies your heartbeat. Each loaf you place feels like punctuation in a sentence God has been writing since the day you first survived. Michael moves between tables, unseen by most, shifting light so that every shadow turns kind. God says, "Vindication is not about crowns, it is about chairs. When I bless you publicly, it is so others may sit without fear." The crowd swells. People you haven't seen in months appear, old co-workers, neighbors, even one or two of the voices that once doubted you. They approach cautiously, their faces a blend of surprise and curiosity. "You look different," someone says. You answer gently, peace changes posture. They nod, perhaps not fully understanding, but drawn closer nonetheless. Music begins, soft folk chords blending into gospel hums. The mayor speaks briefly about community and resilience, but you barely hear the words. You're watching the way strangers pass dishes down the line, how hands meet and linger a second longer than courtesy requires. The table becomes altar. No sermon could preach louder. Michael leans near your ear. "This is the honor you were promised, not applause but alignment. Look how your endurance built belonging." His tone carries pride without pridefulness, the satisfaction of heaven seeing its work completed. God says, the one who was excluded becomes the invitation. The evening deepens. Lanterns swing in the breeze, laughter thickens the air. You find yourself seated beside someone who once spoke harshly of you. For a heartbeat the past trembles, but then they speak first. "I was wrong about you," they say, voice low. "I judged from rumor." You meet their eyes and answer simply, we all outgrow our fears differently. They exhale, a small release of shame into grace. The table absorbs it, turning guilt into gratitude. A hush falls as dessert is served. Someone begins to sing Amazing Grace, hesitant at first, then stronger as others join. By the second verse, the whole square hums. The melody rises into the night like smoke curling toward unseen stars. Michael stands at the edge of the crowd, head bowed, lips moving with the same lyrics humans wrote centuries ago to describe moments exactly like this. God says, "When I honor you, I do it in ways that honor others." Glory that isolates is counterfeit. When the song fades, you realize tears are streaming down your face, not from pain but from recognition. You finally understand why heaven waited, not so enemies would watch your reward, but so you would watch theirs, the freedom to change, the chance to share your peace. You were never meant to stand on a platform, you were meant to widen the table. Michael steps forward, invisible to the crowd yet impossibly present to you. "It is complete," he says. The public blessing is not spotlight, it is shared light. The story has turned from survival to service. You nod, and in that gesture every bruise of the past becomes a seed of compassion. Around you, laughter resumes, plates clatter, candles flicker. The world feels mended, not by miracle but by meal. Somewhere in the distance church bells mark the hour, steady and kind. Heaven keeps time differently, but it loves the sound of people eating together after forgiveness. God says, "Eat, beloved. You have wept long enough. Let joy be your new labor." The afterglow. God says, when light finishes a great task, it does not vanish, it lingers until new hands can see by it. Morning arrives without drama, soft, golden, certain. The square that held last night's laughter now glimmers with quiet aftermath, crumbs on tables, paper lanterns swaying like sleepy stars, chairs still warm from conversation. You walk through the traces of celebration the way a gardener walks a field after rain, carefully, reverently, knowing that the harvest has already begun beneath the surface. Archangel Michael moves beside you, wings folded, carrying no sword, only a small lantern that burns with colorless fire. "This," he says, lifting it slightly, "is the residue of peace." Every act of reconciliation leaves an afterglow. It clings to walls, to voices, to memory. Even those who did not sit at the table will feel its warmth when they pass. You smile, imagining strangers walking these streets later, unaware that they're inhaling invisible kindness. The thought feels like music waiting for lyrics. What happens now, you ask? Michael tilts his head toward the horizon where the first commuters cross the bridge. Now, he says, the story migrates. Peace travels faster than rumor when humility carries it. God says, "I scatter light like seed. You are the wind that spreads it." Days slide into weeks. Life resumes, but it does so on a different rhythm. The baker still opens her shop, yet every Thursday she keeps the free roll sign. The mayor begins scheduling community meals monthly, not yearly. The neighbor who once crossed the street to avoid you now brings her dog by every morning just to chat. None of it feels staged, it feels inherited, as if the table gave birth to a culture. You notice children drawing angels in chalk on the sidewalks. One of them, a small boy with mismatched shoes, tells you, "My grandma said angels stay where people forgive." You ask who his grandma is. He points toward the house with the blue door, Eleanor's house. Your heart folds open like an old letter rediscovered. That evening you visit her. She sits on the porch, sunlight resting on her silver hair, a pot of tea between two cups already poured. "I knew you'd come," she says, smiling before you speak. The light came ahead of you. You talk about nothing and everything, gardens, weather, the way forgiveness changes posture. She laughs easily now, and when she laughs you hear your own healing echoed back in her tone. God says, legacy is not what you leave behind, it's what you hand forward while you're still breathing. When twilight begins to paint the sky in lavender, Michael appears again, not towering, not fiery, just luminous enough to draw notice from your spirit. He looks at Eleanor, then at you, and nods. "Two flames that remembered to share," he says. That is how cities become sanctuaries. He sets the lantern down on the porch railing. Its flame leaps once, then divides into dozens of smaller lights that drift outward, finding open windows, resting above doorways, dissolving into the night air. These will stay, he tells you, until the city no longer needs reminders. Eleanor watches in awe. "I never thought heaven would look so domestic," she murmurs. Michael chuckles. Heaven loves porches and teapots more than you imagine. They are altars that refuse to call themselves altars. He turns to you. Your story isn't ending, it's multiplying. Every person who felt your calm will unknowingly pass it to another. That chain of peace will stretch farther than your lifetime, and that is honor in its purest form. God says, "I measure greatness not by applause but by echoes." Night gathers fully. The angel's form begins to fade, but the warmth remains, curling around both of you like invisible shawls. You realize that the point was never to become extraordinary, it was to make ordinary life feel sacred again. The storms, the vindication, the feast, all of it led here, two souls drinking tea while unseen light keeps traveling through the world. Before he vanishes, Michael leaves one final sentence suspended in the air, words you feel more than hear. "When others speak your name now, may they feel rest." Silence settles, sweet and unhurried. Somewhere a church bell marks the eternal light. God says, "What begins in storm ends in song." Every flame I kindle learns to shine without fear of night. The city sleeps beneath a quilt of soft wind and far-off music. Somewhere a clock strikes midnight, but time itself seems unbothered. It stretches wide and generous, letting gratitude linger between its seconds. You and Eleanor sit on her porch, the last of the tea gone cold, watching streetlights pool gold across the pavement. The world is quiet, not empty, quiet like a cathedral after the choir has left, when holiness has room to echo. You think about everything that has happened, the storm, the humiliation, the table, the forgiveness. Each memory glows faintly, a lantern in the corridors of your mind. None of it hurts now, it hums. That hum is how heaven sounds when it's pleased. A breeze stirs the curtains. From that breath, a glow gathers, first mist, then form. Archangel Michael stands once more, brighter than you've ever seen him, yet softer too, as if the light itself has learned manners. "This is the last visit you'll need," he says. Not because I'm leaving, but because you've learned to hear me without seeing. He looks at Eleanor, then back at you. You carried peace into rooms that once carried rumor. You turned hurt into hospitality. You taught others that survival is not pride, it's partnership with grace. Now the light you bear no longer belongs to a single story, it belongs to the rhythm of the world. God says, every act of kindness lengthens daylight. Even after the sun sets, its warmth remains in the hands that served. Michael gestures toward the sky. Clouds part, revealing not stars but a vast pattern of moving light, slow and steady, like constellations rearranging themselves into new truth. These are the lives touched by yours, he explains. Every reconciliation, every laughter reclaimed. Heaven keeps count, not to boast but to remember what love looks like when it works. You feel your chest expand with something too wide to name. So this is it, you ask. The ending? Michael smiles, a quiet curve of radiance. There are no endings, only elevations. You will wake tomorrow and call it an ordinary day, but eternity will call it continuation. Eleanor's eyes fill with tears that shine instead of sting. Will the light ever fade? She whispers. Michael shakes his head. Light doesn't retire, it replicates. Every time someone forgives because of what they saw in you, another lamp is lit. The network never sleeps. At your own door, you pause, hand on the knob. The air carries the faintest whisper, unmistakable and familiar. Keep shining. I'm still here. You smile, not upward but inward. I know, you answer. Then you step inside, and the light steps with you. God says, rest, beloved. The dawn will find you already glowing.